Okay, 9.6, last section of chapter 9. So first I just want you to take a look at these three different graphs of quadratics and determine how many solutions they have and what is the maximum number of solutions a quadratic can have. So pause the video and think about that. Okay, so remember that real solutions are your x-intercepts or your zeros. They're all related. So when you're looking at how many solutions it has, the green one does not touch this x-axis, so the green one has 0. The blue one touches and then goes right back, so it only has 1. And the red touches here and here, so there's 2. And then if we think in general of quadratics, we have a U shape. So we're only going to touch the x-intercept maximum of 2 times. So max is 2 because it's always this shape or this shape. So we've learned factoring, taking the square root, completing the square. We're going to learn one more method to solve quadratics, and that is called the quadratic formula, which is right here. This is the quadratic formula. And basically you're going to take your quadratic equation and plug in your b value here and here. Then you'll plug in your a value here and here. And you'll plug in your c value here. And then you'll just solve it and find your answer. So let's go ahead and do an example. So use the quadratic formula to find the solutions of x squared minus 7 equals 4x. So first step is we need to get it set to 0. So set to 0. So we have x squared minus, we're going to subtract 4x on both sides. So that would give us a minus 4x here. And then subtract 7 still equals 0. And that's that one. And then the next step, we're going to identify A, B, and C. So A, B, and C. A is 1. B is negative 4. And C is negative 7. So we're going to be plugging negative 7 in for C. We're going to be plugging in 1 for the A. And we're going to be plugging in negative 4 for the B. Okay, so we're going to plug it in. So x equals negative b, which is negative 4, plus or minus the square root of negative 4 squared minus 4 times our a times our c, and then all divided by 2 times our a. So again, I took the negative 4 and plugged it in everywhere I saw b in my formula. I took the a value of 1 and plugged it in for where a is in my formula. And I plugged in negative 7 for c in my formula. Once I've done that, I'm just going to go ahead and simplify as much as I can. So negative 4 is a positive 4, and then I still have my plus or minus there. Negative 4 squared would be 16. And then we have negative 4 times 1 times negative 7. So we're going to be adding 28 here. So again, this right here, negative 4, 1, and negative 7 gave me that positive 28. And then 2 times 1 is 2. And then continuing on to simplify, we can do 16 plus 28, which is 44. And then divide by 2. We can't just divide the 4 by 2 because it's everything divide by 2. So we have to simplify the top as much as we can before dividing by 2. Okay, and then we can say our answer is 4 plus or minus the square root of 44. On your online book, you need to know how to simplify radicals. So I'm just going to do this in pink over here. So what I mean by that is you need to get it as small as you can and take the perfect squares out. So like square root of 44 would be 4 times 11. And the square root of 4 is 2. So this simplified would be 2 square root 11. So I'm going to take this and replace this with that. So now I have 4 plus or minus 2 square root 11 divided by 2. And then since I have 2 and 2 here, 4 and 2 here, I can reduce my fraction, which would give me 2. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Plus or minus 2 divided by 2 is 1, so square root 11. And then this is my answer here. So on your quiz on Monday next week, if this reducing part is a error, just know that I'm still going to give you credit. So as long as you can go along and do all these steps, this simplifying this part should not cause you any point deduction on your quiz. So do not super worry about that, but it might be beneficial and easier for you if you do learn this, because it is very helpful in next math classes and everything. And so I'll go ahead and make a video on just simplifying and put that up as well on this, so you can use that as a resource. With that in mind, go ahead and pause it and try these next two. Okay, so in this case, you don't have to simplify the square root because it's square root of 100, which is just 10, which gives us our answers of -3 and -7. Okay, go ahead and do the next one. And on this one, we end up with a perfect square as well. So x equals 6 and x equals -4. If you have any questions, again, please email Ms. Holstead and I. So moving on to some more, we have the function shows the height of a frog, and we want to know how many seconds is the frog in the air before it lands on the ground. So we want to know this point right here. So we're looking for x-intercept. So we're going to go ahead and use the quadratic formula. So A would be our -16, B would be 10, and C is 0.75. So again, remember, quadratic formula is -b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2 times a. So we're going to plug in 10 where that -b is, so we are going to get x equals -10 plus or minus square root of 10 squared minus 4 times our a, which is -16, times our c, which is 0.75, and all of that is under the square root, and then all of that is divided by 2 times our a, which is -16. Then we're going to go ahead and simplify. So we have -10 plus or minus the square root of 100. 4 times -16 times 0.75 would be plus 48 because we have that negative and that negative. All divided by -32. 2 times -16 Then we have negative 10 plus or minus the square root of 148 divided by negative 32. And now we're going to take these two options, negative 10 plus the square root of 148 divided by negative 32, and negative 10 minus the square root of 148 divided by negative 32, and plug those into the calculator. Okay, so if you plug those into the calculator, you get these two answers. And we're talking about time, so it is going to be this solution. So it's going to take 0.69 seconds for the frog to reach the ground. Okay, so now go ahead and try the next two problems. So for those two try it problems, here is my work. If you're having trouble getting the answers, make sure that either you're doing it step by step on your calculator. If you put this into your calculator, all of it, make sure there's parentheses around. Otherwise, it's going to do the square root of 119.2 divide by negative 32 and then add that negative 10. So make sure you either put parentheses around that if you're plugging all of this in at once, or do the top first in your calculator, hit enter, and then divide by negative 32. If you have any questions on either one of these, please let me know. Happy to explain more or give more examples, whatever you are needing. With that in mind, if you need to see that longer, go ahead and pause the video. I'm going to move on. So the last thing about the quadratic formula is the quadratic formula can actually tell you how many solutions there are. So if you think about just in general taking a square root, if you take a square root of a positive number, so let's just say 4, that's going to give you a plus or minus 2. If you take the square root of 0, that's just 0. There is no plus or minus 0. If you try and take the absolute value, or excuse me, square root of negative 4, there's not a single number squared that's going to give you negative 4. So there's no solution here. So what that means is if it's greater than 0, so bigger than 0, there's two solutions. If this little box here, b squared minus 4ac, is what it's saying, is bigger than 0, there's 2. If it's equal to 0, there's 1. If it's less than 0, in other words, if it's negative, there is no solution. Okay, so to do this, you're literally just going to use that b squared minus 4ac. So a is 1, b is negative 4, c is 3, and I'm just going to use the b squared minus 4ac part. I'm not going to plug in any of the other ones. So I'm going to have negative 4 squared minus 4 times a times c. And then I'm going to solve that. So 16 minus 4 times 1 is 4, times 3 is 12. 16 minus 12 is 4. This is bigger than 0, so there are two solutions. So it was bigger than 0, so there was 2. 4, 2 solutions. Go ahead and try the other ones. Okay, so when I did it, I got 0 here, so that means it has one solution. When I did the other ones, I got a negative number on both, so those are no solution. If you have any questions, go ahead and email Ms. Holstad and I, but that's it. Thanks.